Unit 1A, Early Humans and the Agricultural Revolution. We've already read this in class, but I'm going to briefly read over it one more time for any of you that might need a refresher. So starting where it says background, let's get some fireworks. There we go. The first humans and their ancestors lived during a long period called the Stone Age. During the Stone Age, early humans developed tools that would help them accomplish tasks. Next paragraph. The first tools were made of stone, which would be struck by another stone to make the rock jagged and sharp. This tool had one side that could be used as a handle. The sharp edges of the tools below could be used to cut, chop, or scrape the roots of bones or meat. And if you look at this picture in the blue, that's where you actually can get a better visual of some of the stone tools. The next paragraph says, over time, early humans learned to make better tools. They developed tools made of flint, which is a mineral that is easier to shape and can be made to have very sharp edges. Axes made of flint could be used to break tree limbs, dig, and cut through tough animal hide. And if you notice, we're eventually going to talk about in the next paragraph how they take that flint, they take those sharp edges, and they're going to attach a long wooden handle to make spears. Later, the hunter-gatherers learned to attach wooden handles to their tools. By doing this, the early humans invented spears. These spears allowed the hunter-gatherers to hunt large animals. I gave the example in class how they would hunt woolly mammoths. Well, it's very different to hunt an animal using a tool like this compared to a tool like this. So all of a sudden, you can stand much further away and be able to hunt an animal that's much larger. Next paragraph says, as the early humans developed tools and new hunting techniques, they began to live together in small groups called societies. And this is directly going to send us into our next unit when we talk about river valley civilizations. These small groups shared common goals of hunting wild animals and gathering wild plants, seeds, fruits, and nuts. Wild animals and plants could provide both a food and tool source for these early humans. Because they hunted in groups, these early humans often chased herds and animals over cliffs, which was safer than hunting alone. So all of a sudden, they're learning better and different techniques that can be used to hunt different varieties of animals. And lastly, on page 1, it talks about fire. And I know in my class, we spent a lot of time talking about how fire really changed everything for these early humans, these hunter-gatherers. So, fire was also a tool used by the early humans. The first fire was probably an accident created by an act of nature, probably lightning. We do not know exactly how. The hunter-gatherers did not have a written language. They did not have a spoken language that we are aware of. So all of a sudden, the idea of fire comes about in their images, and archaeologists and historians have studied this, and we do see that fire very much dominates their life and changes it for the better. Page 2. Stone Age people developed their own cultures, and culture is a way of living, a way of life. One of the most important cultural developments was the use of language. Language was important because it allowed early humans to make hunting in groups easier and easier to distribute food. Scientists also believed that the language helped hunter-gatherers develop relationships and resolve conflict. Now, language, and we talked a little bit about this in class in some of your groups, language does not always have to be spoken. Language can be hand gestures. Language can be written on cave paintings, assigning different people different jobs, different hunting groups. So when we talk about language, it is not necessarily that they had an official language. It may be something that one society had a language used to direct them to do certain things, and another group might do the same. The next paragraph says, people of the Stone Age also created art through the carving of stone, ivory, and bone. Scientists have also found pictures of animals and people on cave walls. It is still a mystery why hunter-gatherers produced cave paintings. So we don't know if they used them to communicate. We don't know if they wanted to leave them behind for future groups. We know that a lot of hunter-gatherers moved from place to place, which we'll talk about in the next section. So historians are still trying to discover kind of what was happening. The next section says, during the Old Stone Age, climate patterns shifted around the world. So we've got the Stone Age with these hunter-gatherers, these early humans, and the climate's the weather. So as things like weather start changing around the world, that meant the people had to change. People and animals were forced to migrate or move from place to place. Most scientists believe that about 1.6 million years ago, many places around the world began to experience long periods of freezing. These freezing times are called the Ice Age. Ice Ages. There was more than one. During these periods, huge sheets of ice were formed from ocean waters, leaving ocean waters lower. Many areas that were once underwater were now dry land, allowing groups of hunter-gatherers to travel between the continents. These land bridges allowed people to migrate around the world. By 9000 BC, humans lived all over all continents of the world except Antarctica. And if you look at this picture, it's so hard to think about, but Asia, Russia, is connected to North America up near the top by Alaska. And a lot of our world maps in our classroom show this, but again, it's really hard to imagine that this land right here, that is water right now, there's a strait, so there's a little area of water, was once frozen, or the water was so much lower that people could just walk from Asia to North America. Now, this is how people settled in North America. We know some of the first humans started in East Africa, the first hunter-gatherer societies that we have a bunch of historical evidence to show us. And so then we think about the Bering Strait, the land bridge allowed them to venture to North America to hopefully find better weather, different animals, different places they could live. Now, before we go on to the next unit, I'm going to add a line. This word right here, nomad, means people who move from place to place. I would write this word. I would highlight this word. I'm going to highlight it right now. You're going to want to know this. These hunter-gatherers that move from place to place, they were nomadic. They were always moving. And that's really important in this section. And I'm not sure why it's not in there. So we're going to add it. Never mind. I'm going to leave it up there for you guys. Sorry. Now we're going to talk about the next unit. So we talked about the Paleolithic, the Old Stone Age, the Stone Age with the hunter-gatherers, those cavemen. Cavemen eventually turned into those hunter-gatherers. And now we're going to talk about another shift they're going to make. And this is how it all begins. Tens of thousands of years ago, there were no crops, only the primitive plants we recognize as being edible. It took many thousands of years of careful and accidental experimenting by humans to evolve agriculture to become what we know today. So when you think about agriculture, agriculture is farming. It all started from experimenting different plants, different animals, different combinations of plants that are going to make it easier for humans to survive. So agriculture, we talked about in the beginning, is the occupation of cultivating, which means planting the land, growing crops, producing crops, and raising livestock. This brought changes in the diet of the hunter-gatherers. The planting of crops instead of gathering wild grains brought about many new farming techniques, including irrigation. Definitely want to highlight this word. Underline it, circle it. Irrigation, or irrigating a crop, means bringing a supply of water to a dry area, especially in order to help the crops grow. This allowed for a food surplus. Another word I would definitely want to highlight or know. And a surplus is when you have more food than you need to eat in one day. Basically, you have this field. These people have decided that they're going to grow their own crops. Well, to grow your own crops, you need water. That might mean dams, levees, sprinklers. If you have a sprinkler at your house, that's an irrigation system. Anything that's going to bring water directly to your land, compared to having to take boxes and buckets. Probably not going to put water in a box now that I think about it. Probably a bucket or a bowl from a river or a stream to your land. Well, it's much easier if you can build a canal that's going to connect that water directly to your land. The use of fields, or you will see, were often used. And it says the use of fields for crop growing and granaries, which would be maybe what this building would be, a granary, a place for storage, simplified the search for humans, allowing for non-farming jobs in societies. So now we've got hunters. We probably still have some gatherers who are really good at finding fresh berries and nuts and different things. But now we're having this whole group of people who are farmers. Well, now we've got granaries, we've got storage. So if there's a bad winter, we've got plenty of food here. Now we're going to get some non-farming jobs. And the last little section right here is where we are going to spend so much time next week talking about, and it's the start of civilizations. The early man then began to settle in permanent settlements and build dwellings together. Dwellings are like your houses. So you might want to draw a little house here, maybe even write houses. This allowed people to live a more stable lifestyle and brought security and protection for men. These settlements then grew into villages and then became cities. In addition to growing crops, these early humans also started domesticating plants and animals to work for them and serve as a food source. Domestication is huge. Domestication means taming plants and animals and selectively breeding them to increase their suitability for human needs. If you've ever seen a horse pulling a plow, that's domestication. If you've ever driven by a farm and you notice that all the crops are planted in a straight line, that's domestication. You're not necessarily doing anything specific, but you're doing it, you're planting those seeds, you're asking them or kind of telling them or forcing them, however you want to say it, those plants to grow in that straight line because it's going to be easier for you. So if you've ever had an animal, dogs are domesticated. Dogs can be trained to help the police. Dogs can be trained to help those who are visually impaired. Those are domesticated animals. They've been trained and bred to help humans do something. So we see with the focus of hunting and gathering and early men, they could choose to do other types of jobs besides farming. The ability to choose an occupation or a job that fits your talent is called specialization of labor. Now you can be a carpenter instead of a farmer. So we still have hunters. We are getting fewer gatherers, but they're still there. We have farmers, but we need other jobs. If you're not good at any of those things, hopefully you could find something that would help society. And hence where trade comes from. Trade systems emerged, and farmers could be paid for supplying others with food. Now people can choose different jobs to do. We're going to see a social hierarchy or a division of labor, and we are going to talk about both of those in the next unit. So highlight them, underline them, but just know that it all stems from everybody's doing a different job. Basically, if you've ever seen like a triangle, it's usually a triangle for a social hierarchy, and it's divided out with different lines. One class of people is going to depend on the other for survival. The king was usually at the top of those triangles, those social hierarchies, with priests and craftspeople. You have merchants and farmers who are usually near the bottom on the lower levels. Also, you can use your talents to help the community. If you are a craftsperson and you can help your community, your area, that's going to make you more valuable than others. Hopefully you're asking, why is a farmer at the bottom? Farmers give food to everyone. That's a good question. The Neolithic Revolution first emerged in the Fertile Crescent around present-day Iraq. Mankind was the most active and prosperous around and near the Middle East at this time. So look at the tools on page 1. What do you think the use of these tools were? Let's go all the way up to page 1. What did they use these tools for? Probably to hunt, to cut things, to eat things, to scrape things. So this would be a great answer for number 1. To cut, to chop, to scrape, to eat, to hunt, to live. Those are great answers. The spears, if you wanted to add to number 1, you don't have to, would let them hunt larger animals. It's another possible answer for number 1. Number 2, why do you think spears allowed early humans to hunt large animals? So if you look at my little picture right here, it's not my picture. These guys are hunting. He's throwing these spears at these big woolly mammoths, pretend they're over here. All of a sudden, you can stay far away and still be able to hunt. So a big, dangerous animal right here, you can stand back, throw your spear, hope for the best. It's a lot safer, hopefully easier than trying to get up close and personal. Question 3. In the image title, Hunter-Gatherers and Fire, what are the tools being used in this picture? So, that's this picture. That's this picture. I'm going to zoom in. I took off the title by accident. But you can see they're using spears. We've got some stone here that they're making some art. We've got these bags, probably made of animal skin, animal hide. We've got fire. We've got bones. We've got rocks. So all of those different things. Spears, animal skin, rocks, sticks, bones. All of those are good answers for question 3. Question 4. What happened to hunter-gatherer societies as they migrated from place to place? What factors would have to be in place for hunter-gatherers to stop being nomads? So we're going to go up to where they shifted. So what's going to cause people to migrate? Climate patterns. So this caused hunter-gatherers to move. The weather changed. The weather changed. What's going to cause them to stop being nomadic? Well, nomadic means they're moving from place to place. What's going to cause them to stop? When their food stops moving. When they can grow food, when they learn how to farm, all of a sudden you don't have to move with the animals. You're going to have granaries that are going to store your food. You're going to have the ability to have food wherever you need it. Question 5. Where did the Neolithic Revolution start? And what is a surplus? So, the Neolithic Revolution started tens of thousands of years ago. It's actually going to start, kind of hid it from you, in a place called the Fertile Crescent, which is present-day Iraq. And we have to go up a little bit to find a surplus. Surplus is when you have more food than you need. So it started in the Middle East, in the Fertile Crescent, and a surplus is when you have more food than you need. Question 6 says, explain 2 ways life changed for humans after the Neolithic Revolution. And that is this section right here. We get domestication happens. We get trade. Trade is huge. We're going to get a social hierarchy and division of labor, where you're going to have different people doing different jobs. And then eventually we're going to get civilizations. We're going to get civilizations, and that's up here somewhere. Civilizations are going to start. All of a sudden, you've got domesticated plants and animals, you've got trade happening, you've got social hierarchies and division of labor. Your quality of life is improving. People are happier, healthier, stronger. And question 7, what impact did the Neolithic Revolution have on early humans? Really goes back to civilization. Once they learn how to farm, they don't have to move anymore. They're not nomadic. They're staying in one place. You have permanent settlements. Well, if you're going to live in one place forever and raise your family and have a life there, you want to make sure that it's the best place you can. It means people are helping each other. People are working together for the common good. And so really this creation of permanent settlements is going to make civilizations and the rest of the places that we'll study this year all able to happen. So you guys can go back and pause this. You can rewind it. You can start it again. Hopefully this helps. If you have any questions or need anything, just come ask one of your teachers.